Starting the Gemara towards the bottom of that Tzadik Amud Beis, the first word on the line is Vahazava. Okay, so this goes back to the Mishnah, where it said Vahazava Sheichtim v'chulu, that for a Zava, you can shech the carbon on the 8th day. We're talking about a Zava Gedaila, that's tummy for 7 days, and then on the 8th day she has to bring a carbon, so you can shech it for her on the 8th day. Tani Kamei de Ravada Barave, Atana learned a Braise in front of Ravada Barave, and he read the Braise as follows: Vahazava sheichten aleo b'shvi shalah. You shech the carbon for her on her 7th day. Amalei, so you asked him, Zava b'shvi shalah mi chazia. On the 7th day, could she eat the carbon Pesach? She can't eat the carbon Pesach that night. She has to wait until the 8th day. Even the opinion that says that you shech the carbon Pesach for someone that's a Tamei Sheretz, which means he didn't go to the mikveh yet, which is the opinion of Ula in the beginning of this Amud. But Hanamili Tamei Sheretz, that's only true about a Tamei Sheretz, the Chazi Lorta, because he can go to the mikveh and then at night I'll be able to eat the carbon. But this Zava, Ad L'Mocha, the Masya Kapara, until the next day, until the 8th day when she brings a carbon, Lechazia, she can't eat the carbon Pesach yet. So how could you say that a carbon Pesach could be shechlet for a Zava on the 7th day? So we have to change and say what the Braisa said, B'Shmini, that on the 8th day you bring a carbon Pesach for her. Frag the Gemara Pshita, isn't this obvious? If she can bring a carbon on that day and eat it at night, it should be obvious. And Taisus points out that really this question should be on the Mishnah as well. Similar question on the Mishnah that said this halacha, that a Zava, you bring the carbon on the 8th day. So the answer is, Mao de Teime. So we said before, the Gemara mentioned that I would think to say, Kivin de Mechasre Kapara, since she didn't bring her carbon yet on the 8th day, so therefore, it's okay. Kivin de Mechasre Kapara, since she did not bring the carbon yet, loy, so maybe she can't bring the carbon Pesach. Why not? Because she can't bring a carbon herself. Someone, the Kayan, has to bring it for her. So maybe she shouldn't rely on the fact that it will be brought. Kamash Malan, and that's the Chiddush that it tells us, Kidder Rav Shmaya, like Rav Shmaya said, and this is what we had yesterday, Rav Shmaya said that we rely on the Kayanim, that they definitely take care of all the karbanos that have to be brought. Ravina says, Nida Tonakanei. The Braisa we just quoted was not about a Zava, but it was about a Nida. And this is what he learned. Vahanida sheichten aleo b'shvihi. That a Nida, you can shech the carbon Pesach for her on the 7th day. So the same question was asked. Amalei, so the question was asked, Nida b'shvi mi chazia? Is a Nida able to eat the carbon Pesach that night of the 7th day? Even the opinion that says that you shecht for Tamei Sheretz, the chazi l'orta, because at night he'll be able to eat the carbon Pesach. But Nida l'orta de shvi hu de tavla. What's the halacha of a Nida? This is a detail which is different between a Nida and a Zava. A Zava goes to the mikveh during the 7th day, anytime during the day, and then she has to bring a carbon the next day on the 8th day, and then she can eat the carbon Pesach. By a Nida, the halacha is that she has to remain 7 clean days until the end of the day, and she only goes to the mikveh at night. So therefore, she doesn't eat the carbon until the next day because Nida lo urta de shvi hu de tavla. She only goes to the mikveh at night of the 7th day, and at shmini the avda harav shemesh, and then until sundown of the 8th day lechazia, she can't eat from the carbon yet. So how could you say that a Nida eats the carbon on the 7th day? So like we said before, you're right, we have to switch to Girsa, and the Braisa really said that a Nida could only bring the carbon for her on the 8th day. So again, the Gemara asks the question, Pshita. It's obvious that in a Nida you have to wait until the 8th day, and the Gemara actually says that it's a Kal V'Chayma, Hashta. Now, Uma Zava de Mechasar Kapara. When it comes to a Zava, that still needs to bring the carbon, Sheichtem V'Zoyken Aleh B'Shmini. So we say that we have to wait until the 8th day, and that's when you shech the carbon for her. Nida, the loy mechasre kapara, a nida that does not need a kapara, tzricha l'meimed the shechtina v'zakinan Allah. Do you have to say that on the 8th day you could shecht for her? On the 8th day, you just wait until at night, and she could eat already at night without any carbon. There's no carbon by a nida. So what's the chiddush to say that for a nida you shech the carbon on the 8th day? Says the Gemara, nida itzrichalei. No, he is telling you a halacha about the nida because ha kamashmalon. This is what he's telling you, b'shmini in b'shvi loy, that it's only on the 8th day and not on the 7th day. In other words, this halacha itself about a nida, that a nida only goes to the mikveh the night of the 7th day and not any time during the day of the 7th day, that itself is taka the chiddush. Kedetanya, like we learned in the Braisa, kol chayave tvilis all people that are chayav to go to the mikveh, tfilasam by yain. When do they go to the mikveh? By day. Whether it's a shemeres yain connected yain, you go during the day, or you have to wait till the 7th day. It's always during the day you go to the mikveh. Nida v'yoledes, a nida, a woman that gave birth, tfilasam balayla. Their tefillah is at night, and that's the reason why the Brisa is telling us this. To know that you have to wait until the 8th day to tell you that their tefillah is at night.
But couldn't we get the number right? And they're Brian Shvi.
That's why we switched it. And the Chanami, the Gemara switched it to Shmini. The Gemara corrected it. But the Chiddush of Shmini is
the whole focus of the whole didn't was tell us that had to be Dafka
Shmini. Correct. So we corrected that. And that's Taka the Chiddush to teach us that you have to wait until the 8th day and not the 7th day. The Tanya, so we learned in the Braise, Yachol, Tehei, Tevelis, Meboid Yain. I would think a Nida is just like all other people that goes to the mikveh during the day. Talmud Loima, Shivas Yomim Tia Binidasa, Tehei Binidasa, Kol Shiva. She remains in her status of a Nida for all 7 days. And V'yoledes Iskash Nida. And you see in the pasuk, Rashi brings Kimei Nidas Dvaisa Titma, that a Yoledes is compared to a Nida. So a Yoledes and a Nida have to wait full 7 days, and they can only go to the mikveh at night. And then to eat a carbon, they have to wait until the Har of Shemesh, until the evening of the 8th day, and therefore you can bring the carbon for them on the 8th day, but not on the 7th day. Zog the Mishnah, we're going back to the halachis of people that could or can't eat the carbon Pesach. Ha'oinam, a person that has a mace that was not buried yet, and he's a relative, and he has an obligation to see to it that he's buried. A person that's trying to uncover a collapsed wall or a collapsed house, and there could be a dead body there that he's searching for. So this is a person that might become tameh. An individual that was promised that he's going to be taken out of prison. So it's the day of Erev Pesach, and he was told that he's going to be taken out of prison, and at night he'll be able to eat the carbon Pesach. A person that's sick, and a person that's old. But they are able to eat a kazayas of the carbon Pesach. So all of these individuals, sheichten aleya. You can shech the carbon Pesach for them. So Rashi explains regarding the mifakech sagal, even though he might find someone that's tameh there, but as long as he didn't find anyone that's tameh, he has a cheskas tara. He has the status of who he is until this point, which is a person that's tahir, and therefore we can shecht for him. And there are other people that we rely on the fact that he'll go out of prison, and we'll rely on the fact that he'll be able to eat a kazayis. However, the Mishnah continues, al kulam, but regarding all these individuals, ein shechtan aleyan bifnei atzma. You don't shech the carbon Pesach for them alone, because we are concerned, shema yaviu es ha-Pesach lidei psul. It's possible that they won't be able to be makar the carbon Pesach, the einan, the mifakech, they might become tameh, or the person that's promised to go out of prison, he might not. And the person that could eat just about a kazayas, the person that's sick, he might not be able to eat a kazayas. So we don't want to bring the carbon Pesach for any of these individuals alone. And lefichach, now the Mishnah says another halacha. Therefore, im ira behen psul, if any psul occurred to any of these individuals, peturin melasais Pesach sheni. They'll be pater of bringing a Pesach sheni, because at the time when the shchita of the carbon Pesach was done, and the time when the zrika was done, they were right to eat from it. And if only later something happened, they became tameh or weren't able to eat from a kazayis, so then that's developed afterwards. But they already are potter from the carbon Pesach if at the time of shchita and zrika they were right to eat. Chutz min ha-mafakech begal. Besides the individual we mentioned before that he's working to uncover a body that's in a place that the wall collapsed. Shuhu tameh mitchilasai. So of him, if he discovers a dead body there in that gal, so what we say is that he probably was tameh from before already, because he was there in that area, and with his body he created an oil, he created a roof over the area that he was looking for that dead body. So when he finds a dead body, we say that it was probably tameh from before, so therefore the carbon Pesach he brought was not good, so he's chayav to bring a carbon Pesach sheni. So talking about the case of a person that's in a prison, we rely on the fact that he's going to be released if he was told that he will be released. So this halacha that it says over here in the Mishnah, that you can't shecht on him alone because you're concerned that maybe he won't be released, you could shecht for him, but not alone, because you're concerned that he might not be released. That's only if he's in a prison of Goyim. If he's been imprisoned by Yidden, Rashi brings cases when the Gemara in Ksubis that says that sometimes you imprison a Yid temporarily in a case where to force him to give a get, or sometimes when he owes money. So and when he's in a prison of a yid, sheichten b'fnei atzmai, not only could you shecht for him, but you could actually shecht for him alone. Kiven da'avtechinu, because if they promised him that they're going to take him out, mapikle, they will release him. We have no concern that he won't be released. The pasuk says, she'eris Yisrael, the leftovers of Yidden, lo yaso avla, will not do any iniquity, v'lo yadabru chazav, and don't speak a lie. So therefore, if the authorities that arrested him were Yidden, and they promised to release him, we could rely on the fact that he will be released on time to eat the Korban Pesach. Rav Chisda said another qualification regarding a person that's in prison. The Omred Beis HaAsur and the Akom, this that you said, that a Yid that's in a prison of Goyim, that we don't shech the Korban Pesach for him alone. This is only if he's imprisoned outside of Beis Pagi, which is the last village at the edge of Yerushalayim. So he's in a prison outside of Yerushalayim. But if he's in prison inside the wall of Beis Pagi, in other words, inside Yerushalayim, so then sheichten olav b'fnei atzmai, you can shech the Korban Pesach for him, even though they might not release him from prison. My time, efsher the amtule v'achalei, because even if he won't be released from prison, he's in Yerushalayim. You can bring him the Korban Pesach and he'll eat it right over there in prison in Yerushalayim. The next thing it said in the Mishnah was lefichachem ira v'chulo, that if there was a psul that happened and by any of these individuals, so they're going to be potter of bringing the Korban Pesach Sheni. Besides the case of Mefakech Bagal, because you say that it's now you see that he was Tommy from the beginning. So by this person, by this Gal, that you see that he became Tommy from before, when is this? This is only if the pile of the rubble that he's searching for a body is a round pile that we assume that his body created this roof, created the tent, oil over that area, and he for sure became Tommy from before. And therefore he'll have to bring a Pesach Sheni. Aval gal oroch, but if it's a rubble that's long and it's not round, where his body for sure was oil over it, so then potter malasas Pesach Sheni. He'll be potter from bringing a Pesach Sheni because it's a suffix. You don't know if he became Tomei from before or not. And we already had in the Gemara before, when you have a person that brings a Korban Pesach and you have a suffix, if the Korban Pesach that he brought was good or not, he can't now bring a Pesach Sheni. The Gemara discussed by Arichis that there's no eitz of bringing a second Pesach and making a condition that maybe it's a shlomim. It doesn't work. So once you have a suffix, he can't bring a Pesach Sheni. Because in a place where the gal, the rubble, was long, so his body not necessarily became an oil over that area, so not necessarily was he tummy. We learned this in a Braisa as well. A person that's uncovering, looking for a body in begal, in rubble, itim potter. Sometimes will be potter from a Pesach Sheni, and itim chayev. Sometimes will be chayev. Keitzad, what's the difference? Gal ogol, if it's a round pile of rubble, so then v'nimtzis tume tachtov, and he uncovers a body there, chayev, he'll be chayev to bring the Pesach Sheni, because we assume that his body became oil over that body even before shechita of the korban. Gal oroch, but if it's rubble, which is longer, and v'nimtzis tume tachtov, and there you uncover a dead body, then potter, he'll be potter from bringing the Pesach Sheni, because eime toir hoya b'shas shechita. It's definitely possible that he still was toir at the time of the shechita, and therefore he didn't bring the Pesach Rishon. It's a suffix, and once it's a suffix, you can't bring the Pesach Sheni either. Maybe he did bring the Pesach Rishon, so you can't bring the Pesach Sheni. Sagt the Mishnah, Ein sheichtenes a Pesach al hayochit. You don't bring a Korban Pesach for a single person. There has to be more than one person on the Korban Pesach. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. This is Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Rabbi Yosi matter. Rabbi Yosi says, no, you can bring it for one person as long as this one person is able to eat the entire Korban Pesach. You have a group of 100 people, and they cannot each eat a kezayis of the Korban Pesach, so you can't shecht for them. So Rashi says that this is also Rabbi Yosi explaining his opinion. What Rabbi Yosi is saying is that when it comes to the Korban Pesach, the number of people that's counted on it makes no difference. One person, 100 people, as long as it can be eaten. If one person thinks he could eat an entire Korban Pesach, pretty big talent to do that. So then you can bring a Korban Pesach for one person. And if it's for 100 people, it'll be 100 people. As long as they can eat the Korban Pesach, that's all that matters. You can't make a group for the Korban Pesach that will consist of women Avodim, Evet Kanani, and Katanim, and the children on the bar mitzvah. And the Gemara will explain why not. Zok the Gemara.
What's the how many people can you put the maximum?
On the Carbon Pesach, as long as everyone gets a kazayas, that's all. Yeah. Tana Rabbana, we learned in Abraisa. Minayin she'ein sheichten es Pesach ala yachid. So Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. From where did he learn that one person cannot be counted on a Carbon Pesach? Talmud Loima, the pasuk says, Lo yisuchal es bayach es Pesach ba'achad. The continuation of that pasuk is Lo yisuchal es bayach es Pesach ba'achad she'arecha. Don't bring your Carbon Pesach ba'achad she'arecha. But Rabbi Yehuda says you can darshan ba'achad separately. Don't bring the Carbon Pesach alone. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi says, Yachid v'yachal lachloi. If it's one person and he could eat it, sheich den olav, you can shech the Carbon Pesach for him. Asara v'en yachal lachloi. If you have 10 people and they cannot eat from the Carbon Pesach, they can't finish it, ein sheich den alein. You don't shech for them. So like Rabbi Yossi said in the Mishnah, the only thing that matters is if they can eat it. Rabbi Yossi, hi be'echad ma'yavid lei. How does he darshan this pasuk of be'echad? That Rabbi Yehuda darshan, says the Gemara, he learns the pasuk differently. Mi boyale like the Rab Shimon, he darshans it like Rab Shimon, which is more the simple pshat of the pasuk. The Tanya, Rab Shimon said, Minayin lezeveach es pischoi bebamas yachid. From where do I know that if you bring a Carbon Pesach on a bama, on a private bama that a person makes in his backyard, b'shas isser abamas, in the time when there was an isser to make your own bama. One Rashi says once there was Mishkan Shiloi, and definitely once the Beis HaMikdash was built, so you're not allowed to make your own bama. So from where do I know that if you bring a Carbon Pesach on your own bama, shuba loisese, you're even a loisese, Talmud Laima, the pasuk says right here, loisuchal is bayach es hapasach ba'achat she'arecha. Do not bring the Carbon Pesach in one of your cities, in one of your gates. You're not allowed to bring it on a private bama. Yochel af b'shas heter abamis kain. I would think that this also refers in a time period when there was a heter for the bamais, that you're not allowed to bring the Carbon Pesach on this. And so Rashi explains that I would think that a private bama is only made for the nedarim and adavis, a private carbon that a person wants to bring. But maybe the Carbon Pesach, which is an obligation that every year has to bring, that can't be brought on a private bama. Talmud Loimar be'achat she'arecha. The pasuk says be'achat she'arecha, which means Lo amru ela b'shah shekol Yisrael nechnasim b'sha'arecha. The issur of bringing it on a private bama is in the time period when all Yidden come to one gate. All Yidden come to Yerushalayim, to the Beis HaMikdash, or to the Mishkan Shiloi. That's the time period when you're not allowed to bring the Carbon Pesach. So therefore, you're not allowed to bring the Carbon Pesach on in the time when there's an Isser of bringing on the Bama. But in the time when there's a Heter of bringing another Bamis, when Yidden are not coming to one Shar, to one Beis HaMikdash, then you are allowed to bring the Carbon Pesach on your own private Bama. Rabbi Yehuda, not Rabbi Yehuda, Gemara asks on Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. So Rabbi Yehuda used the pasuk ba'achat sharech for something else, to teach me ba'achat, that you're not allowed to bring the Carbon Pesach alone. But Rabbi Yehuda, hi minole. From where does he learn out this halacha that Rab Shimon learned out? So the Gemara says, Tarti shamet mina. He learns out two different halachas from this pasuk. He reads it, leisuchal esvayach hapasach ba'achat. That teaches me that you're not allowed to bring the Carbon Pesach alone, and also ba'achat sharecha, to teach me that you're not allowed to bring the Carbon Pesach on a bamas yachid in a time when there's an isser of bamas. Well, Rabbi Yossi, and according to Rabbi Yossi, mimai de lahachi de ka'amar Rab Shimon. How does he know to darshan this pasuk the way Rab Shimon darshaned it? Dilmek de ka'amar Rabbi Yehuda das. Maybe you should darshan this pasuk the way Rabbi Yehuda darshans it. So Rashi here says this is not really a question. This is the way Rabbi Shimon darshaned it, so it's not really a problem. But there's another source really for Rabbi Yossi's opinion, and therefore the Gemara is asking this. Amalach. So Rabbi Yossi will tell you, my source is, Lo yisal kedaitach. You cannot darshan the pasuk like Rabbi Yehuda, that you can't bring a Carbon Pesach alone. Why not? The Haksiv, ish lefi achloi. The Torah says, ish lefi achloi, which means that even one individual brings the Carbon Pesach and eats it alone, so therefore when it said ba'achad, you can't darshan it like Rabbi Yehuda, that you're not allowed to bring a Carbon Pesach alone. So here's the source of the machlokes, whether you're allowed to bring a Carbon Pesach alone. So he asked the question as follows. Did Rav Yehuda say that you're not allowed to bring a Carbon Pesach for one individual? But I'll ask you, as stated from what it says in the Braise. Isha, a woman, berishain, when it comes to the Carbon Pesach, or the first Carbon Pesach, sheichten alel b'fnei. You could shech the Carbon Pesach for her alone. In other words, what Rav Yehuda is trying to say is, Isha is chayiv in the first Carbon Pesach just like men. B'sheni comes to the second Carbon Pesach, she can be counted secondary together with other people. Meaning, Rabbi Yehuda is saying that when it comes to Pesach Sheni, a woman is not obligated, but it's a reshus. If she wants to be counted together with others, she could be. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, this is Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. So what do you see here? Rabbi Yehuda, when he wants to explain that a woman is chayiv in the first Korban Pesach, as a chayiva, it says that you could bring it for her alone. But Rabbi Yehuda said in our Mishnah, you can't bring it for one person alone. So he told him, read the Brisa differently. Don't read it that she brings the Korban Pesach completely alone. Women, a group of women, could bring the Korban Pesach for themselves separately. But it's more than one woman. So he asked him on this pshat, are you allowed to count on a Korban Pesach a group that only consists of women? But we said in the end of the Mishnah before, you don't make a Korban Pesach a group of women or avodim or ketanim. My love, don't you think that's how you understand the Mishnah? It's either or. You don't have a group of women alone, or avodim l'chadayu, a group of avodim alone, or ketanim l'chadayu, or a group of children alone on a Korban Pesach. So how could you have a group of women? So you answered him, that's not how you read the Mishnah. Noshim va'avodim. You're not allowed to have a group that consists of women and avodim kenanim, and ketanim and noshim. Noshim va'avodim ketanim. What does the Mishnah mean when it says noshim avodim ketanim? You read it as follows: noshim va'avodim. You're not allowed to have women and the avodim together in one group, and the reason is mishum tiflus. We're concerned of inappropriate behavior if you combine the noshim together with the avodim kenanim, and ketanim va'avodim, and you also shouldn't have a group consisting of the children together with these avodim kenanim mishum pritzusa. We're also concerned of inappropriate behavior. Rashi says mishkav zachor. You have these avodim kenanim together with these children. We're concerned about their behavior. But it doesn't mean noshim alone. A group of noshim alone is okay. Now the Gemara here is going to bring the source of this machlokes. We once had it before, but here's the source of this sugya regarding the obligation of women in Korban Pesach. There are three opinions over here regarding their obligation. So Gufa, this is the Brisa itself that discusses this. Isha comes to a woman and the Korban Pesach. What's her obligation? So the first opinion, as we just quoted, was Berisha in Sheichten Aleh B'fnei Atzma, the first Korban Pesach, she's obligated, you can shecht it for her alone, or for a group of women alone. Ubisheni Yisn Yisat Feil La'Chedim. Korban comes to the Korban Pesach Sheni, so it's only Orishus. So therefore she could be included together with others, but not alone. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. So this is Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Rabbi Yosi says, Isha, a woman, B'sheni Sheichten Aleh B'fnei Atzma. Even in the second Korban, the Korban Pesach Sheni, it could be shecht for her alone. Ve'im tzarech leima berishin. Needless to say, but the first Korban Pesach. So Rabbi Yosi's opinion is, a woman is obligated in the Pesach Rishon and in the Pesach Sheni. Shim's opinion is, Isha Berishain Aysan Aysat Feila La'Chedim. Even the first Korban Pesach, a woman is not obligated. It's only a reshus. She can be brought together with others. B'Sheni Ein Shechtan Aleh Kol Iker. The Pesach Sheni, not only is she not obligated, but it's not even a reshus. She cannot be counted on the Pesach Sheni. She has no shaychus to the Korban Pesach, and it's shalolim nuyav. You can't count her on the Korban Pesach Sheni. So we have the three opinions over here regarding a woman's obligation in the Korban Pesach. So the Gemara here brings the source of their machlokes. The Mai Kab Miflagi, what's the basis of their machlokes? Rabbi Yehuda saw what Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is. What does it say by the Pesach Rishon? B'michsas nefashos, count the souls of the people for the carbon. So it says nefashos. It doesn't say men. It says nefashos. What does nefashos mean? Va'afil nashim. That includes even women. If so, you'll say Yochi afilu b'sheni nami. So they should be obligated in the Korban Pesach Sheni as well. So Ksiv, the pasuk regarding the Pesach Sheni says Cheta Yisa ha'ish hahu. That man will have an aveda if he does not bring the Korban Pesach Sheni. It says in the continuation of the pasuk Ki Korban Hashem lo hikriv, and Rashi explains that ki means if he doesn't bring the Pesach Sheni. So this is talking about a Pesach Sheni, and it says over here ish in ishalai. This refers to a man and not a woman. So here I see that a woman is not obligated to bring the Pesach Sheni. If so, shouldn't I say that she can't even be brought, even as a reshus, she can't even be counted on the Pesach Sheni because it says only ish. So on that we say no. Ahani kachol chukas haPesach. But for this, it teaches me the pasuk when it says kachol chukas haPesach that this Pesach Sheni has similar halachas to the Pesach Rishon l'tfeila ba'alma, that she could be counted as a reshus if she wishes to be joined in the Pesach Sheni. So this is the source of Rabbi Yehuda's opinion that a Pesach Rishon, a woman is obligated. The Pesach Sheni is only a reshus. But Rabbi Yosi, my time, what's the source of Rabbi Yosi's opinion that says that a woman is a chiyuv for the first and the second Pesach? Chsiv, the pasuk says, B'Rishon, by the first carbon Pesach, it says, as we just quoted, B'michsas nefashos, count the souls. V'afila isha, that includes even a woman as well. Uksiv, B'Pesach Sheni, and the pasuk says regarding the Pesach Sheni, V'nichreso ha-nefesh ha-hi mi-Yisrael, that the one that does not bring the Pesach Sheni, so that soul will be chayav kodesh. It's again, it uses the term nefesh. Nefesh v'afila noshim. That refers even to women as well. The Ella, so the Gemara asks on Rabbi Yosi, Cheta Yisa ha-ish ha-hu lemute mai. When it says the term ish, only a man, so what does that come to exclude? Lemute cotton mikaris. That's only coming to exclude a cotton, that a cotton won't be chayav karis. But it's not coming to exclude the woman. Taisus here asks the question, you need a pasuk to exclude a cotton? Cotton is not chayav in any mitzvahs. And Taisus says, when it says cotton, they're talking about a cotton that became a gadol between the Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheni. So he's now, at the time of Pesach Sheni, he's already a gadol. That's the chiddush over here, that if you became a gadol in between, you're still going to be potter from kodesh. Sagt the Gemara weiter. Rab Shimon, what's the explanation of Rab Shimon's opinion that says that women are potter from the Pesach Rishon, and by the Pesach Sheni you can't bring it for them at all? So Rab Shimon, Ksiv b'Rishon, Rab Shimon says, it says by the first carbon Pesach, ish. It does say ish by the first carbon Pesach. And the Gemara is soon going to bring the source of where it says ish. Ish in, ish aloi. So that excludes the woman. She's not obligated. So you would think that if so, she can't even be counted on secondary because it says only ish. So ahanile, no, but for this, the pasuk teaches me b'michsas nefashos. So it says the term the souls that are counted l'tfeila, that she's not obligated, but she could be counted on the Pesach Rishon. Now you would think that even for the Pesach Sheni she could be counted for it even if she's not obligated. But the Torah excludes a woman by the second carbon Pesach, the Chsiv, Cheta Yisa Ish, that only refers to a man. Ishin, Ishaloi, a woman is excluded. So now the Gemara explains Rab Shimon's opinion. What are we excluding a woman from? Are you excluding a woman from the Pesach Sheni, that she's not obligated? You don't need that. Hashta b'rishain loy, if from the Pesach Rishon she doesn't have an obligation, b'sheni mebaya, you don't need to exclude her from the carbon Pesach Sheni. It wouldn't be it if you compare it to the Pesach Rishon. Elolav mitfeila, when it says in the pasuk again by the carbon Pesach Sheni ish, to exclude the isha, that means that she can't even be counted on it at all, because she's shaloi lemenuyev, she has no shaykhs to the Pesach Sheni at all. Now the Gemara goes back to what Rab Shimon said. Where does it say the term ish by the Pesach Rishon? Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosi didn't find any term of ish by the Pesach Rishon. Where did Rab Shimon find that word ish by the Pesach Rishon? Well, my ish to come Rab Shimon. If you're going to say the term ish is when it says v'yikchu lahem ish sel lebeis avis v'gaimer. Is that the pasuk? But ahu mi boile like the Rabbi Yitzchak. That pasuk is already used for something else. Like Rabbi Yitzchak said, the Omar, Rabbi Yitzchak said, ish zeiche. A man could be zeiche, meaning he could acquire a carbon Pesach for others, to count others on the carbon Pesach. But ve'en cotton zeiche. A cotton cannot be zeiche on the carbon Pesach for others. So that's what the pasuk is coming to teach me here. Ish and not a cotton. It's not teaching me ish and not a isha. So there's a machlokes here, Rashi and Taisus, regarding this. Rashi says that the ish over here that comes to exclude a cotton, this is the general idea that you find b'negei to shlichus, that a ish could be a shliach and a cotton cannot be a shliach. And this is the source from this pasuk. A man, an ish could be a shliach to be mizaka other people as carbon Pesach, but not a cotton. Taisva says that, no, this is not the source, because the fact that a cotton can't be a shliach is not learned from here. A cotton has no das, he can't be a shliach. And this pasuk is specifically b'negei to a carbon Pesach, even though by carbon Pesach a cotton could be counted to eat from a carbon Pesach, so you may have thought that a carbon Pesach is different than the regular din of shlichus, so it's a specific din telling me that no, that a cotton cannot count others on his carbon Pesach. So you can't say that we're learning it out from here to exclude a woman, because this pasuk refers to a cotton. The elo, so then you're going to tell me from where are we learning it out? From the pasuk mi ish lefi achloi. It says again ish lefi achloi, that ish eats from the first carbon Pesach. So you can't learn out from here either, according to Rab Shimon. Why not? We had this pasuk just before on Amar Aleph. The Gemara brought the pasuk ish lefi achloi. What did we learn out from there, according to Rabbi Yosi? That you can bring a carbon Pesach for one person alone. So Hamid Rabbi Yosi Savalak Rab Shimon, the Gemara Amar Aleph said that Rabbi Yosi that learns out from Ish Lefi Achloi, he holds like Rab Shimon regarding Rab Shimon's drasha of Me'achat Sha'arecha, that you learn out from Me'achat Sha'arecha, that you don't bring it on a bama. So the Gemara on Amar Aleph says that Rabbi Yossi learns from Ish Lefi Achloi that you can bring your Korban Pesach alone, and then he holds like Rab Shimon regarding the drasha of Achat Sharecha. So therefore, so the Gemara says Rab Shimon Nami Saval like Rabbi Yossi. Rab Shimon also holds like Rabbi Yossi that he darshans from Achat Sharecha not to bring an Obama, and from Ish Lefi Achla he darshans that you bring it as an individual. So therefore, this pasuk of Ish Lefi Achla is also already used. So from where did Rab Shimon learn this out? Where do we see a Ish that comes to exclude a woman? Vahu mibayale the sheichnas Pesach ala yachid. So Ish Lefi Achla is already being used to say that you can bring a Korban Pesach even for one individual. So the Gemara says, no, Amalach imkein nichtev rachmana lefi achloi. To learn that you can bring the Korban Pesach alone, it could have just said lefi achloi, which is a singular term, which would teach me that you can bring it alone. My ish. Why is it saying the term ish? Shamet minot tarti. It also teaches me this halacha to exclude a woman from the obligation of the Korban Pesach Rishon. Dr. Gemara Kaman Azlah Adam Rabbi Lazar. Whose opinion does this that Rabbi Lazar said follow? So he said as follows: Isha berishain chayva. A woman in the first Korban Pesach, it's an obligation. Ubisheni rishus. In the Korban Pesach Sheni, it's only a rishus. V'doiche es a Shabbos, and it pushes off Shabbos. The Gemara immediately asks, what is this referring to? What pushes off Shabbos? Rishus, if you'll say that the Pesach Sheni is only voluntary, amai doiche es a Shabbos. Why does it push off Shabbos? Ele'eme, the way to read what Rav Lazar said was, B'sheni rishus, the Pesach Sheni for a woman is only voluntary, but uberishen chayva, the first Korban Pesach is an obligation. V'doiche es a Shabbos. The first Korban Pesach, that's doiche Shabbos. So whose opinion is this? Kaman, Rabbi Yehuda. This was Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, that the Pesach Rishon is a chayva and the Pesach Sheni is a rishus. Amar Rav Yaakov, Amar Rav Yechanan, ein oisen chabura, similar to halacha we learned before about who should the group consist of. So Rav Yaakov said in the name of Rav Yechanan that you don't make a chabura shakula geidim, which is all geidim. Why? Shema yidakta kubai, because maybe since they don't know the halachas of Korban Pesach, they might be too particular about the halachas, and v'yiviyu lidei psul, and they're going to come to passel it, even though it's really not passel. Interesting. Taisus here points out that there's another Gemara that says the opposite about geidim, that we're worried about geidim being too lax in mitzvahs and not knowing the halachas, and therefore transgressing different things because of the lack of knowledge. Here it says the opposite, that because Gedim don't know the halachas, they may be too particular and they might end up bringing something to a psul, so you have to have at least one person that knows the halachas to tell them what's kosher and what's pasul. Tana Rabbanon, we learned in Abraisa, Pesach, Umatzeh, Umarer, Berishain Chayva. In the first Korban Pesach, it's an obligation. Mikan ve'elech, Berishain means the first day of Pesach, that is. The first day of Pesach, so you have the obligation to eat the Pesach Matzah Umarer. Mikan ve'elech, after the first night of Yom Tov, Rishus. So this is a Rishus, it's only voluntary. Rab Shimon says, Be'anoshim Chayva. For the men, it's an obligation. But U'benashim Rishus. For the women, it's only voluntary. This is Rab Shimon's opinion that says that it's only voluntary. So now the Gemara wants to understand first the opinion of the Tanakama. Ahai koi. When the Tanakama said that Pesach Matzah Marer, on the first day it's a reshus, it's a chayva, and the rest of the days it's only a reshus, what was he referring to? Ilema Pesach, was he referring to the Korban Pesach? That can't be. Pesach kol shiva miyike. Do you have the Korban Pesach on any of the rest of the days of Pesach? Tanakama can't be saying that the Korban Pesach on the other days of Pesach is only a reshus. You don't have the Korban Pesach the rest of the days. Ve'elo amatzah marer. He was only saying this regarding matzah and marer, that the first night of Pesach it's an obligation to eat, and on the rest of the Pesach it's voluntary. But if the Tanakama was talking about matzah and marer, that doesn't fit with what Rab Shimon was saying. What did Rab Shimon say? Rab Shimon said, Be'anoshim chayve, for men it's an obligation, u'benashim reshus, and for the women it's voluntary. So the question is, the Bach adds, V'chi lesle Rab Shimon. Does Rab Shimon not agree that it's an obligation for women to eat matzah and marer? Ha da'amar Rabbi Lazar, this that Rabbi Lazar said, Noshim chayaves b'achilas matzah, that women are chayav to eat matzah. Dvar teire, minat teire they're obligated. Shenema, because the pasuk says, Lo yiseichal olav chametz shivas yamim. And then it says, again, to Lo yiseichal olav chametz, do not eat any chametz, shivas yamim teichal olav matzahs. So the Torah writes the Isser of Chametz and the obligation of Matzah in the same pasuk. And we learn out, Kol sheyeshna beval teichal chametz, if you have the Isser of eating chametz, yeshna bekumachal matzah. You have the obligation to eat matzah. And v'hani noshim, the women as well, hoil v'yeshnem b'baltechol chometz, since they're not allowed to eat chometz, yeshnem b'kol machal matzah. They're obligated to eat matzah. So if the Tanakama was speaking about matzah, and he was saying that it's a chayva, and on that Rab Shimon is saying that it's voluntary, would that mean that Rab Shimon holds that it's only voluntary to eat matzah? How could that be? Rashi here points out that maybe we should say that Rab Shimon was saying this regarding matter. The comparison that we're making between chametz and matzah is only regarding matzah, but not matter. Maybe Rab Shimon was saying that matter for women is a reshus. So Rashi says it can't be, because matzah and matter are compared to each other. Al matzah and marayr and yechlu. So matzah and matter goes together. Now the truth is that we do find in one case that matzah and matter don't go together. When is that? Bisman hazeh. Bisman hazeh, matzah is a chiyuv min ha-Torah, because it says be'erev teichel matzahs, and matter is not a chiyuv min ha-Torah when you don't bring the carbon pesach. So you do see that matzah and matter don't necessarily go together. So you see from here, according to what Rashi is explaining, Rab Shimon, that bisman shebeis hamikdash kayam, the mitzvah of matter always applied, even if he did not bring the carbon pesach. Bisman hazeh, matter is midrabana. Bisman shebeis hamikdash kayam, we compare matter to matzah, just like matzah is min ha-Torah even without the carbon pesach. Matter is also min ha-Torah even without the carbon pesach. The Rebbe brings this into Haggadah. That was mitzayin to this Rashi here. You see this inyan here that matter is min ha-Torah even without a carbon pesach. So how do you read this brayse? So the Gemara says you're gonna have to read the brayse as follows. Ela eime, the Tanakama was saying Pesach matzah umarer berishon chayva mikan ve'elach rishus. That the Pesach matzah and marer, so the first night it's a chayva, and then after this, so the matzah and marer is only a rishus. Rab Shimon Aimer, and then Rab Shimon was referring only to the Pesach ba'anoshim chayva, the carbon Pesach for men, it's a chayva, and b'noshim rishos. And for the women, the first carbon Pesach is only voluntary.